If I go back to the scene library, what I can also do is use my own photo. So I can load a photo from a file. If we're using this on a mobile device, I can capture a photograph with the mobile device. But by clicking on Load Photo, I also have to hit the Escape key to get out of the full screen view, because it won't show the Choose File window in full screen mode. So just make sure that you've escaped out of full screen mode to be able to choose a file. Now the size of file, or the location of the file I should say, you can navigate to using the traditional method. Simply double click on the file that you want to load. As a tip, it's best not to have extremely large files, because the program is going to reduce this to a screen resolution of around 1024 by 768. So if you've got an extremely large file, all you're doing is it's going to take a lot longer to load that file. You're not gaining any additional resolution by using higher resolution file images. Having loaded the file, we now need to give some information to the program about the size and the scale of the structures in the image, and therefore the size and scale of the louvered roof that we can place into that image. So when your file loads initially, you're going to see that we've placed in a sort of dummy version of a louvered roof, purely and simply so that we can help, or that will help you to provide the information that the program is going to need about the eventual size and scale of the roof that you will draw into this image. So please don't be confused at this stage. This is not the roof that we're going to place. This is just a framework that allows us to get information, or for you to give information to the program that will ultimately be used when you draw your own roof. The first thing we need to know is, where is the ground plane in the image? And so the line, the dotted line with the two circles, in order to move this, you point with your mouse, click in the circle, pull the circle down to move the ground plane. And the idea here is that if you're placing your wall or your louvered roof against a wall, select the base of that wall and orient the ground plane so that the line of the ground plane matches the base of that wall. If you want to place your louvered roof into the garden, or if there's a patio and you want to place it in a patio, you would orient your ground plane based on where you want the back two legs of that standing framework to be located. So the ground plane is not necessarily something that you fix to the building each time or to a wall each time. You place the ground plane relative to where the actual louvered roof is going to be extending from. So in this case, we're going to position it against the back wall so that we've got the ground plane on the back wall. And that's the first part of the process. Next thing we need to know is, what's the scale of the photograph? And the best way of providing that information is to use this scale slider, such that you slide until the structure is the appropriate height relative to the other images in the photograph. So in this case, we want our structure to basically fit up to this level in the wall. And so I'm going to use the scale to set the height of this relative to the back wall. So again, nothing to do with the overall size of the structure, purely and simply use the scale to get the height correct based on other information that's available to you in the image. Now the perspective here is based on changes that may occur in where the photograph was taken from. If you were stood up on steps here and so you're unusually high looking down on the image when you took it, you may need to change the perspective of where we're placing the roof line. So here the object of the exercise is to try and get the roof line to follow the line of the wall in the building. And so I'm just going to adjust the perspective a little bit from where it was originally to get that looking right. Again, nothing to do with the size of this structure. We're going to do that later. Just make the perspective look right based on where your ground plane is and where you want to position the roof. Let's say this louvered roof was being placed down a couple of steps in a courtyard, and we wanted to adjust the tilt of how the deck or how the louvered roof looks in this image. We have an option to adjust the tilt so that it's appropriate for the lay of the land. So with those three settings, you should be able to create something that looks kind of right based on whether you're positioning it against the back wall, or whether you want to have this juxtapositioned to the wall or located across a patio in the image. Being able to set the ground plane, the tilt, the scale and the perspective provides information. It's not, at this point, locating the frame of the louvered roof. So having given all of the information that the program needs, we can now click on the Visualize option and say, I want to draw my roof. And once again here, all we're doing is positioning now the legs in that roof, and you can see that we can draw something that's appropriate size, appropriate scale, appropriate perspective for this image. And we can drag it around in any direction that we want relative to that back wall. Again, if we were looking to position this in the garden and we needed to relocate those legs in the garden relative to the back wall, we would do that by initially setting up our ground plane in the appropriate place when we're providing all of the other information. Having located our roof, once again, we can set the exposure options, we can set the sun angle, so we can now see exactly how much shade we're going to get from a structure of this approximate size located at the back of this actual building, which should be a huge advantage when you're trying to show your client that that they're going to get the appropriate shade, the appropriate light from the new louvered roof that they're placing in their own home, in their own building, in their own backyard. Thank you very much for listening to the presentation. I hope this helps you use the tool, and I hope you get a lot of value out of using the tool. Thank you.